Welcome back, everybody. It's Turkey Talk, brought to you by Wild Faith Podcast. My name is Evan Bungham. I have my co-host Luke Timmons with me here today, and we are one day closer to turkey season. Luke, how are we doing today?
Good. Month and 2 days. Month and a day and a half.
We're almost to the 1 month mark, and I know some seasons have opened up, so good luck to everybody out there that's actually probably already shot birds or chased birds. But I think birds in Minnesota are finally starting to feel the warmth and getting fired up.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be a weird spring because it's like we were talking before we hopped on. It's 75 is the high today, and then it drops to 40s and 60s, and then 40s, and typical Minnesota spring. Can't decide what it wants to do.
Nope. Yeah, and it's wild to me to think that here in central Minnesota we are literally going from it being 70 degrees to 3 inches of snow tomorrow.
That sucks. That sucks. Glad we're not don't have any of the white stuff on our forecast. Knock on wood.
Yeah, but I tell you what, it's shaping up to where it looks like we're actually going to have potentially a dry, spring potentially with no white stuff chasing turkeys, and that gets me excited. The only thing, the downfall with that, we're probably going to have a lot of ticks. Yeah,
for sure. That's a good PSA to douse your clothes in that permission and be ready for it. And we've talked about on here, and I'm like a super anal when it comes to ticks, because it's like as soon as I get home, I take all my clothes off, throw them in the washer, go stand in front of the mirror and just look, on every little TMI, but every little crevice I can find, because it's just that's the last thing I want to deal with.
Well, I think not only that, just your dogs too. I put on about 8.5 miles shed hunting last weekend, and it was about same weather we have this weekend, where it's upper 60s or late early 70s, and we've had, I think I had 1, 2, 3, 4 ticks that I found on my hunting clothes.
Yeah,
but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about turkey decoy setups. Mm-hmm. So, and I kind of want to just run through the quick gamut of just going through early season, mid season, late season, go to quick setups, and then we'll kind of wrap it up with that. So how do you feel about, for you, going into, that early season setup? We're talking pre-breeding phrase, talking early April, kind of mid-April. What are you kind of going to and doing?
Yeah, I mean, flocks are pretty grouped up still. And so with that, they're still trying to figure out who's in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where, you can get away with running a bunch of decoys and a myriad of options, whether it's, Jake and hen, throwing a full strut, a couple hen, the full strut, is kind of like a hot button topic sometimes, I feel like, but especially early season, that can be absolutely money.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. It's kind of a mixed bag, and it kind of depends on the farm and just kind of what you've got for birds around. But, sometimes full strutters, the thing that always works, and sometimes it's the half quarter or a quarter strut Jake that always works,
Yeah. I always like to say, I mean, not that I have a turkey hunting guru or nothing, because I only got a few years under my belt, but that Jake and hen decoy is set up, is just kind of dumb, usually dummy proof.
So what's your setup with that though? How are you placing that?
It's typically I'm bow hunting, so it's a lot closer. Some sort of direction facing somewhat away from me, off to one side or the other, depending on just how the setup is. If I'm in a blind, that way when that Tom maybe circles around to try and get behind that Jake or something, he's right. He's not looking at me, right? He's kind of going around to get on behind him, and then I can take a shot on him. But usually a lot of it too is just how, if you're running and gunning, just depends, especially if you got one coming in, it's just get them out and get ready.
Yep. The one thing I never really thought about until now, especially bow hunting from the ground, not using a blind, of where, sometimes actually, especially when you're up tight and close, having a full strutter decoy sometimes is extra nice, because it gives you that you got
You get
that
away with
2-second window where they're covering behind that full strutter where you can draw your bow, or something like that.
It's a mini blind, right?
Yep, kind of.
Well, it's something to keep their, a lot of times with decoys, it's something to keep their eyes off of you.
Yeah.
So especially like, not only gun hunting, but bow hunting, that's a huge, huge thing because, gun, you got on your knee and you can kind of just hit the boomstick and go. But bow is a whole nother thing. But what's your dummy proof for early season?
Man, early season, I'm really watching birds to see what they're doing. Most of the time they're flocked up, but a lot of times I'm first gonna start out with the quarter strut Jake, transition into maybe run, if that's not working, obviously with like a bedded hen. Quarter strut Jake, bedded hen, typically setting them about 1.5 feet apart maybe, and I've got that hen facing towards me wherever I'm at, and then I'll have that Jake kind of quartering off the opposite side. So same thing like you were saying, you can kind of get that turkey to work around a little bit. And if that's not working, I'll rinse and repeat that with a full strutter and a bedded hen. And then if it's not working, then I'll start kind of bringing out all the tricks and gadgets of where I might run 2 feeding hens and a breeder hen, and I might have a quarter strut Jake and maybe a full strut Tom too. Maybe I kind of start playing with all I think I have 7 or 8 decoys. So I'll kind of start playing with that. But that's just, I would say that's pretty much early season for me, where it's kind of play around with until I find something that works.
For sure. And then just moving on to mid season right on next is, the hens are kind of starting to nest, that mid, like now we're mid-April, late April, maybe even getting into early May, even that kind of late April time frame, mid-April. What are you noticing? And then what are you kind of doing for decoys?
Yeah, I just look at it like that mid-season, we're talking like mid-April to early May kind of time frame. You're finally starting to get some hens that are starting to nest. They're starting to disperse a little bit. That time frame from roost to, Tom searching for hens is sooner. It isn't like the early season where you might not be able to kill that bird until, if you don't get him off the roost, it might take you until 11 o'clock to get him where he's out searching for a hen.
Sure.
that time frame might be cut down by an hour or something mid more season. But for decoys wise, kind of focusing, and it's probably when I'm doing a lot more running and gunning type stuff too. We're getting a little bit more foliage that's coming up. I'm probably going to be still sticking to a Jake and a breeder hen. If that's not working, I might even just run like a lone hen and just start covering ground.
Do you ever start moving that Jake closer? I know you said like 1.5 feet, but like kind of simulate more of a breeding scenario.
Yeah, typically I'm always tight from early season to mid season. I'm always those guys are within a foot and a half of each other.
Okay.
I've every once in a while I'll throw them close or on top of each other. But most of the time I've just had better success of where if you're keeping it off just a little bit, it almost keeps it like it's a subordinate Jake, of where he's not sure if he wants to breed that hen, but he's kind of sticking off the side. And a lot of times I've just seen it where Toms will come in and either they'll kick that Jake completely off, and then they'll go straight to trying to breed that hen, which I think is the funniest thing to watch in the world.
On a decoy or something?
Or sometimes you'll get it where they'll try breeding the Jake decoy, which is even funnier too. So
yeah. Confused bird, right?
Yep.
When do you start? I know your favorite little decoy is the old funky chicken. When do you start playing with that?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I've forgotten to talk about it for a couple podcasts now, but like the funky chicken, I only use it. I don't use it right away. Like for me, if anybody knows, that came out, I think, long time ago. Had been like 10 years now. And it's just a weird looking decoy. I mean, it's like the size of, I don't know. It's like size of I guess like a really skinny goose, but it's like as thick as it's thinner than like a milk jug. And it's just this Jake that's vertically upright, and it just looks weird. And when things have gotten really tough and birds have been pressured, and like, I'll throw that up with like a breeder hen, or I'll just even throw that up by itself. And It's the funky chicken, man. It works. I
Yeah.
don't know.
And I think like a key with that is like it's kind of like the low bird on the totem pole as far as like a tom would be concerned. Like it looks like a really small Jake.
Yeah.
You know, someone that they can just go
like
beat on.
Sickly Jake.
You know, it's like kind of like going back to the old, you know, recess schoolyard. Like sounds bad, but like that's the one that gets picked on, you know, and could get beat on a little bit. And that's, you know, I don't know. It is a goofy looking decoy, but it's kind of like proof is in the pudding with that one. Yeah.
I don't think I've had a hunt that it has not worked on for me yet. And the nice thing about it too, it's really tiny. Like it just fits. It's long, but it's really light. So if I'm like running and gunning, I could take that and a breeder hen and like literally strap them to my turkey vest and just go. Yep. But I would honestly though, you know, truly like late season stuff for me, like we're talking, you know, I could run that decoy setup with the funky chicken at any time, but you know, kind of more focused on kind of the mid-May, you know, end of season. We're talking like post breeding turkeys are already got their eggs laid. You know, I'm really kind of done with decoys at that point in time. I'm probably running maybe a lone hen if I had to, or a feeding hen, but a lot of times those toms are, especially some of the older ones, just like kind of like deer hunting, talking about the rut stuff, they're desperate to find that last hen. Yep. And they will go to great lengths and they will travel long distances across long fields. And typically, you know, it's a lot harder too, because we get a lot more green growth. So it's that kind of game of they can't really see as good as they used to. And it's that game of cat and mouse where I feel like now where your calling gets to be really essential and just kind of understanding the birds. But I, you know, late season, I typically maybe only run a hen. I'm probably sticking away from running a Jake or even running a full strutter. Might be a good time for funky chicken. I've used it then.
There you go. Yeah. No, that's good point. Just stick to the, you know, like you said, like they're like deer. They're looking for that last rut, you know, action and trying to get that last hen to breed. And yeah, man, it's every time we talk about turkeys, it's like, it's still a month away.
Well, it's the hard thing is that we started so early this year, which is good. I'm happy about that. We kind of got ahead of the curve a little bit and, you know, compared to last year. And so it's been almost harder because we've been talking about turkeys since literally February and we still have a month.
It's getting closer. Yeah.
It's getting closer. But I will say one last thing that I did forget. I always keep this in my pack. I have a Montana Decoy pop-up strutter, which I think is awesome. You know, if you get stuck in a situation where don't have decoys, you don't have time to bring decoys, but you know, this thing weighs nothing, I can throw it in my pack or whatever it is that I'm bringing, you know, they have that ability where it's like all of a sudden I can get out and I can, you know, I can throw this up in front of me, especially if I'm bow hunting, gun hunting, doesn't matter, but I could reap that bird potentially, where I could go out and cover that extra 60 yards of distance without that bird knowing that, you know, I'm stocking up on him and he just thinks this tom's coming in. I think they're really useful. I don't use them all the time. I still have yet to successfully reap a bird. Maybe that's something I do this year. But
there you go.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. Good stuff. Well, if you like what you heard today, be sure to, you know, like, follow, subscribe wherever you digest the old Wild Faith podcast. And we're going to have a ton of turkey content still coming and some sweet videos probably coming to us. Some, hopefully, knock on wood here, some successful hunts we got planned. So
let's go.
Game time.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys for listening. We'll see you next week on Turkey Talk.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through faith in the great outdoors. We hope today's episode has inspired you to seek God's presence in the wilderness and deepen your connection with nature. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Wild Faith podcast on your favorite platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll continue to be a part of the Wild Faith podcast community. We'd also love to hear from our listeners, so please don't hesitate to reach out with your questions, comments, or topic suggestions. You can connect with us on social media or through our website. Your feedback is important to us and helps us improve and tailor our content to better serve you. And always remember, the great outdoors isn't just a playground for hunting and fishing. It's a sanctuary for finding solace and spiritual renewal. As you gear up for that next adventure, I pray you find God's presence in the crackling of a campfire, the thrill of reeling in your catch, or the quiet solitude found in nature. Until next time, Thank you for listening to the Wild Faith Podcast. Take care, and God bless.